Hi everyone, my name is Ngoc and welcome to the first episode of TALKIES. We're going to give you some personal insights into the filmmaking industry from different guests from different aspects of filmmaking. So whether you're in the industry or outside of it, today we're going to give you some unedited version. Yes, the raw version. Well, with that said, let's bring in our first victim.
I didn't know I was a victim.
Please tell us your name, age, where you're from, and your job title.
My name is Nguyen. I'm 32 years old, and I am originally from Florida and now based in Los Angeles, California, as a cinematographer.
How long have you been here for?
Been in LA, I think about 8 years now.
8 years.
And I've been working as a DP for about 10.
Could you tell me what a DP stand for and what does a DP really do? And how does that differ from like a camera operator or cameraman?
I always say the DP is a director of photography, and they are in charge of the visuals of the film, the one really actually crafting the image and what you see on screen. And that includes the lighting, the camera work, just all the technical details that you see. I always like to also say that I create the emotion and feeling that you feel when you look at an image. So it's not just the visuals, but the overall mood and tone. And how it differs from an operator is technically I'm in charge of the camera operators. I tell them what to do, while it's often that DPs also operate the camera. There are many times where you have a specialty camera that you need to use, and like Steadicam. I don't necessarily need to know how to use a Steadicam, but I need to know what a Steadicam shot can achieve, what they do, and if it's the right tool for the job. Like I said, it's just the overall crafting of what you see on the screen.
So basically you're overseeing the camera department when you're hired to be on the job.
Not just the camera department, but also the lighting department, the grip department. And I always like to think on set, it's me and the director standing shoulder to shoulder, making things how we want them. And then I'm in charge of all the other people to help support that. So when a director tells me, I want to look and feel like this, I have to interpret that. I have to analyze it, and I have to understand what they mean by that. And then how to achieve it. Does that mean like, maybe instead of an 8K light, it needs to be an 18K, or instead of this camera, we need this camera, even down to the nuances of the lens and what focal length you shoot with and what T-stop. So it's turning all these technical bits of knowledge into artistic expression.
Wow. That's beautiful.
It's a very poetic way of saying it, but it's not that glamorous.
I love everything that you just broke down. Could you take us through the process of taking on a project from beginning to an end as a DP?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I don't think a lot of people realize how involved my job is and how much I work before the actual shooting. The actual shooting is a very small portion of what I oversee. So typically I'm called either by a producer or director, and then the main thing is I read the script first. I have a meeting with the director to see if we're on page in terms of how we see the film, how they see the film, and how I see the film, and if there's anything that I can offer to the film in terms of my unique perspective on it. So I think that's important for me. I don't necessarily just want to be someone who's just told what to do. I want to be a collaborator, right? Mm-hmm. So I have a meeting with the director. We talk about the script. We talk about the visuals, how we want things to look and feel. Then we gather visual references, inspiration. It could be paintings, photographs, stills from other films typically. And then we just talk about how we want to make it happen. So then after that, we typically see locations, and then we shot list together. Depending on the shot list then is the gear that I need. Then I'm in talks with a line producer or producer, telling them, hey, I need this amount of crew. I need this lighting budget. Here's my camera budget. Sometimes they're giving me the budget and I have to make it fit, but other times I'm also asked like what I need, right? So there's a lot of research involved. Like if there's a special effect that we want to achieve, but none of us really know how to do it and it's never been done before, then I often reach out to vendors and other people who have that area of expertise. And it's like, okay, we want to do this. So how do we make it happen? So that's the research phase that a lot of people don't realize goes into the job. There's the degree of scheduling too. So meeting with the first AD, the director, it's like, okay, how do we want to schedule our days? And then I offer my insight on how to be more efficient and what makes more sense. And, it's all a collaborative process. So we have that, then just constant production meetings, and then finally we make it on set, hopefully.
Wow.
Yeah. And then again, on set, it's just nonstop go where it's typically the schedules are overbooked and just working hard to get all our shots. And then for me, it's giving the director time also to work with the actors and work with crafting the scenes and maintaining my artistic vision and trying not to compromise too much on what I want to achieve too.
That's a lot.
Yeah, sorry, that's such a long-winded answer. There's
I love
so
all the
many
details.
layers to it.
I love it. So what do you do to begin your career as a DP? What did you start out as?
I started out shooting videography, I guess you could call it. A lot of people start out with, the Canon cameras, like a T2i 5D.
Oh, yeah.
I did come up from that world, and it just introduced a whole new breadth of interest to me, and I quickly fell in love with it. So I started shooting kind of corporate projects, like weddings, etc. And then I fell into the world of narrative filmmaking, and to me, that is really where I found my passion and my love for it. So moved to LA, worked as a camera assistant, as a second AC, then first AC, and just slowly worked my way up while also still shooting projects on the side.
So would you say you didn't know that you were going to do narrative until you got into filmmaking?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when you don't know anything about the film world, you think, oh, I want to be a director, right?
Yeah.
But I was always very technically minded, and then when I learned what a job of a DP was or a cinematographer, I was like, this is exactly what I wanted. This is exactly what I was looking for, because I was always such a camera nerd. I always loved the technical side of things, even just figuring out VFX and fun little things like that. But to me, it was always about using technology and creating something beautiful.
Yeah, and I think that's so important for people to know, filmmaking isn't just directing or writing and producing. There are so many different roles that we need to have to make a film come true.
Absolutely. I mean, when people think about film, they always think about, I guess you would call it above the line people, producers, directors, but below it all, it's all the craftsmen that really hone their skills. And it truly is a craft when you're in the world of filmmaking, and everyone contributes their expertise into creating what you see on screen.
Can I ask, where did you learn your crafts and skills from? Was it in school, or is something that you just picked up by working on set over the years?
It's a little bit of all of that, actually. It's shooting on my own, figuring out stuff on my own, and then making a conscious effort to really learn and study the craft. That's why I worked as a second AC, I worked as a first AC, I worked as a gaffer, key grip. So I needed to understand all these positions to have the insight and knowledge of how to make my job as a DP better, and to know what my crew goes through as well. I also went to film school. I always knew I wanted to have that very focused time to study and perfect and master my craft. So that was 2 years of eat, breathe, sleep cinematography, just nonstop. And I'd say that's where I was able to really hone my vision and my craft and become a much more robust cinematographer.
There are a lot of people wondering if they should go to film school or not, if they want to break into this industry. What is your take on that?
I say it depends. It really depends on where that person is in life and if they can afford to take that time off to really just focus on their craft, right? And that's also what I tell people, is that it is a time for you to focus on your craft, and you're not going to get that anywhere else. There's so much that you learn in film school that you honestly can't learn on set, at least as a DP. And I personally recommend it. If you can afford it, if you can afford the time, I recommend it, just because, again, it's a place that you can just laser focus on what you want to do and really make mistakes. Because if you're hired on a job, you're not going to be pushing your limit. You're going to be playing it safe. And the people that I've recommended to go into school and help get into school, the number one thing I tell them is use this time to make as many mistakes as you can. Like, this is your chance to just mess up with no consequences.
So you made a lot of mistakes in school, Brian?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I tried to make as many mistakes as possible, because you learn from it. You learn what works from it and what doesn't work from it. And it's just gets compartmentalized. And when you come up upon that same situation again, you know what not to do.
That's true.
Yeah.
Do you know you always wanted to be a DP from the start?
No, I didn't know until pretty late, actually, in my career.
What sparked that passion or interest?
Yeah, so growing up in Florida, I surf and snowboard and stuff. And there's a surf photographer that I really love. His name is Morgan Masson. And I just looked at his work, and he's traveling all the world shooting surfing. And I was just like, why can't I do that? Like, why won't I be able to travel around the world shooting, having fun, and, just have that be your life and being paid for it? And that honestly is kind of what sparked the interest at first. I know it's a very selfish thing to think about, but I also didn't want to think about my life and doing something that I wasn't passionate about, because that's the majority of how you spend your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want to spend every waking day doing a job I hated only to go home and finally live. So,
Oh, I love
yeah.
that. What is your definition of a good DP?
Oh man. Oh, that's a very hard question. I think a good DP is a good leader, first of all. I think they need to be someone who's good at managing people, and also someone who can execute their vision without much compromise while being a good collaborator. I don't know, you have to have the whole package. Like this job has so many politics that's involved, management, and then that's not even the creativity part. So,
I think that's almost every position
yeah.
on set.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just what your job title is.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Exactly.
so many layers to what you do before you even get to do what you do.
Yeah. I guess, and also a DP that's knowledgeable and technical. I think that's important.
Agree.
Yeah.
What do you think are your strengths as a DP?
I think my strengths as a DP, and hopefully people agree, is that I am very efficient in the way I work. I work quickly, I work efficiently, and I collaborate and work well with others. I'm pretty easygoing, and I like to create a good atmosphere on set, generally. And yeah, I hope people like my work. I think that's obviously a very subjective thing, but I do think I'm able to create the images I see in my head. I don't know, is that... Did I answer it?
Yeah,
Did I answer the
definitely.
question?
Yeah, definitely. I'm like processing what
Yeah.
you're saying right now. So what do you recommend for people to learn as they pursue cinematography?
What to learn or what to do? What?
Like if someone wants to get to be a cinematographer,
Mm-hmm.
like me, like
Okay.
I haven't pursued it much. So what would you recommend for me to start?
I would recommend, just picking up a camera and start shooting. Don't worry about the gear. Don't worry about what you don't have. Don't worry about what you see on big Hollywood sets. What's most important is that you just start shooting and start doing something, because the more you shoot, the more mistakes you'll make, and the more you'll learn from those mistakes.
How do you know what mistakes you're making
Um,
if you don't have no experience?
Yeah, I mean, you just have to do it, right? You show
Yeah.
someone and they say it's a piece of garbage. So it's like, okay,
That's how you learn?
yeah, that's how you
Okay.
learn. Exactly. You get feedback from
Yeah.
others and not take it personally. It hurts the soul, but it also builds you as an artist, and it helps you also learn how to take constructive feedback.
That's very important.
Yeah.
As an actor, my teachers always tell me, oh, you can totally make your own content, make your own film by grabbing your iPhone and just shoot on it, because why not? So many people have done it. So what is your take on that? What's the difference between me taking my phone, shooting something, submitting to film festivals versus, an actual production?
Mm-hmm. I mean, without knowing your expertise in cinematography, of course, but I would say the difference is the experience of knowing what you need, knowing how to achieve something. And say you get hired for a feature film as you are, right, without knowing a lot. There's so many different things that you have to understand, like scheduling. How do you schedule? What crew to hire? What gear to have? Because they ask you, oh, what lighting package do you need? And you've never seen the location before, right? So you have to be able to make those informed decisions based on just the knowledge that you have. And I think an experienced and seasoned DP would be able to give much more precise answers and ultimately save money without having make those mistakes, because you can't ever get the money back, right? If you do something wrong, or if you get something wrong, it's hard to come back from that.
And what would you say is the difference between an amateur or beginner cinematographer versus someone who is experienced?
I think the difference is that an experienced cinematographer chooses the right tool for the story. And that means intention of why you pick a lens, why you're lighting in a certain way, what are you trying to say with the camera. I think amateurs, they just kind of shoot what looks cool, but there are times when the story calls for it to be ugly, right? Not everything should be a beautiful image. The cinematography should support the story, and to me, that's the difference.
So what would you say is the biggest challenge as a DP?
Oh, there's a lot of challenges, but I think the biggest challenge is always managing resources and expectations. You know, you can sign on a low budget project and it's like, I would love to do the shot with a crane, with this, that, like all the toys, right? But the reality is that we never have an unlimited budget, and we're always constrained by resources. So the hardest part is figuring out how to achieve these things that we want for the production with the limited resources. But that's also my favorite part of the job, is the problem solving aspect of it. It's like, okay, how do I achieve this with what I have? And to me, I love that. It's just super fun, and I've found that the constraints actually lend more creativity. So you typically come out with solutions that are better than you had originally thought of, just based on what you have to figure out on your own.
You're right. I feel like for me, I have producing background, and you're right. Like every project has a different budget, and the client always have really crazy expectations, or they just don't know, what we know.
Yeah.
So you gotta work around that, and you gotta make their vision comes true, but in a very realistic way, but also communicate with them in terms that they would understand.
Yeah.
And so I totally get you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also still maintaining your integrity as an artist without compromising too much. So at the end of the day, the hardest part is that compromise between what you want to achieve and what you can achieve.
When working on set, what would you say is your big 3 no-nos?
The big 3 no-nos on set. Don't be late. Don't lend your opinion where it's not needed. Especially if you're a PA, don't give, what you think should be done, because there is a very strong chain of command. And the third is just be safe. At the end of the day, we're making art, we're making films. Nothing is worth getting hurt over.
I love the last one. I think so many of us, especially for people who just start getting out, we don't know how to say no. And we would just go above and beyond to impress people or to prove something to ourselves. And we kind of put ourselves in danger, whether driving to set late at night in a dangerous area or not having enough rest between call times. And we don't want to speak up because we're too afraid if we speak up, then nobody's going to hire us for the next job. Yeah. So I love the last one. I mean, I love all 3, but I think number 3 is something I can resonate a lot with.
I mean, I've definitely put myself in very tenuous situations, and looking back, extremely sketchy. And you think, I would do anything for the shot. But the older you get, the more you work, the more you realize it's a career in longevity, right? So you don't want to do anything that'll hinder your future. And at the end of the day, it's not worth it.
Yeah. And I feel like the right team or the right people that you work with will understand if you speak up and also set like a boundary or expectation. So if they hire you again for the next job, they'll know, I should not put Brian in this situation because he already spoke up about it.
Absolutely.
Something like that.
Yeah. It's very easy to get sucked into this job and realizing that it's your life and you would do anything to kind of reach the top, right? So you never want to be that person who's the naysayer, but at the end of the day, it is also about setting boundaries. And that's something I tell my crew often. It's respecting yourself, respecting the boundaries, and putting your foot down where it's needed. And I've said no to many shots that I don't think are safe. And I'm also in charge of so many departments that it is my responsibility to protect those who are working for me and working for this project. So it's really respecting the people you work with as well.
Yeah. Love that. All right, let's move on to this very interesting question.
Okay. Oh gosh.
If you had to kill one role on set, what would it
First
be?
AD. You don't even have to finish the question. Just kidding. I love all you ADs out there.
Okay.
Okay, this is more of a joke, but the
Uh-huh.
first ADs, they are my best friend on set, but
Mhm.
they're also my worst enemy because they're the ones with the clock who are like, hey, we got to go in 5 minutes, even though I might need 10 minutes to set a light or something, right? So they are the constraint at the end of the day to take my time in lighting a scene how I want or setting a camera how I want. But I also know that they're doing their job. So I understand. It's kind of just a funny relationship with the 80s and I. But yeah, I love them, but also hate them.
It's a
But
love-hate relationship.
yeah, it's love hate. But I will say that in the way I work, I
Uh-huh.
also manage myself pretty well. So
Mm.
there are many times where I don't necessarily need them, but they're nice to have when you have to call talent and stuff, and having them put their foot down to tell people to hurry up when I'm ready.
It's a stressful position.
It is, yeah. I know. All my respect to the first cities. They're
Yeah.
so underappreciated,
Yeah.
and they also don't get the hate that they deserve. Or wait, they don't deserve the hate that they get.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay, so on the topic of killing and getting rid of people, if you can get rid of one thing in the entertainment industry, what would it be?
The long hours, for sure. I would get rid of the standard 12, 13-hour days. I don't think it's sustainable, and I think it just puts people in unnecessary danger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I feel like it also affects our mental health, physical and mental health. And for me, it's definitely affected my personal health and also my relationship.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
It's so hard to maintain a work-balance life when you're
Mhm.
working 12 hours a day for 5 to 6 days in a row, and then on your off day, you're just so exhausted that you don't want to do anything. You don't want to talk to your significant other
Yeah.
or participate in anything, and then next day you're back on set. So
Yeah.
that's probably the thing I would get rid of for sure.
So what would you say is the ideal hours on set?
8 to 10 hours, I think. Yeah,
8 to
10 hour
10.
10-hour days are very healthy. I know, like Clint Eastwood, I think he does 8-hour days, and it's shown that it's possible. It's just studios and whoever's investing have to be willing to spend a little bit more money, because I understand at the end of the day, it is a budget constraint. It's a matter of money and resources. That's really what it is.
I would love to do that. 8 hours
Yeah.
done, and then spend the next hour to wrap or clean up.
Yeah. I mean, the smaller projects that I produce on the side, for me personally, since I'm a believer in it, I also mandate 10-hour days for all my shoots and all my productions. So it's just, something that I think needs to start from the bottom up. And even if it's my small production, I do have to uphold the standard that I want to set.
So since, you devoted 2 years into school and then right after that, you just work on set nonstop until now, how do you manage your work-life balance?
You don't really. I mean, as a freelancer, you have a lot of time off, but when you're working, you also have no time. The periods where you're not working, you're like, man, I wish I were working. The periods where you're busy, it's like, man, I wish I wasn't busy. So I don't know. I'm not the best person to ask for that, to be honest. I'm still figuring it out. And I don't even have a family, right? So when you have a family, that's like another variable you have to consider. And I don't know how to manage that because I'm not there yet, but
Are you thinking
we'll see.
about starting a family anytime soon?
Not anytime soon, no.
Would you date a DP?
No,
Why?
too close.
What about dating like an actress?
I wouldn't rule it out, I guess.
Okay. So someone in the industry is okay as long as they're not a DP.
Yeah, I think someone in the industry is okay. It's nice to be understood because you don't really understand what life in the industry is until you are actually in it, and having someone understand it could be helpful, yeah.
Yeah.
Just how exhausting it is, and
Okay, ladies, he's single and ready to mingle.
I never said that last part. Putting words in my mouth now. Can we cut that?
Okay. All right, moving on. What would you do if you were not a filmmaker?
If I wasn't a filmmaker, I'd probably be a dentist right now.
A dentist. You do have very nice teeth.
Thank you.
Oh.
I don't think that comes with being a dentist, but thank you.
Okay. All right. Focus. All right. Give a bad advice on set.
Oh, tell the director what they should do. Easy.
Nice.
Lend your opinion at all times.
What would you say is the misconception about filmmaking?
I think the biggest misconception is that it's a one-man job. There are so many people outside the industry where they attribute a lot of a film's success and look to a single person. Typically, it's the director or actor, right? But they don't see the hundreds of dozens of people behind that production to support it. You know, again, the craftsmen, it's like even the painters on set, they all add to it.
Like for me, whenever I see any films, even when my friends would tell me like, "Oh, this sucks," I'm like, "Dude, you have no idea how much work went into this."
Yeah.
Even get the money for it, get it greenlit. Like, there's so much that has to be done for you to actually see it on the screen.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and that's why personally for me, I like to sit through the credits too, just seeing all the people that are involved in it, because it's like, yeah, it could be the most simple short film ever, but you realize there's actually like 20 VFX shots in there and you didn't know.
Yeah.
And the reason why you don't know is because you're hiring those artists who have such expertise and that expert level of knowledge to make it so seamless, and that's craft.
Yeah. Wow. All right. So let's talk about something a little bit lighter. My heart is not. I feel like I'm about to cry, like thinking about all the hard work that goes into every project. Could you share us your funniest or worst experience on set? We can go from funniest.
I don't know about funniest, but worst experience. Yeah, there's a feature film I shot that probably won't ever come out. And without naming any names or people, the short version of the story is I was basically hidden from 2/3 of the budget that wasn't used on the film. And yeah, I wasn't given the resources or support to have success in the project. So, and I think it shows.
And what did you learn from that experience?
What I learned, I guess, is I should have looked at the red flags a little bit earlier in production and realized something was a little off, and just kind of trusted that gut feeling.
What do you think are some common pitfalls that new filmmakers often encounter?
I think the most common pitfall is, again, going back to, from my perspective, is just worrying about the gear too much. Like they think, oh, they need the latest and greatest camera just to make a beautiful image, but that's couldn't be farther from the truth.
What would you say is something they need to focus on?
From a DP's perspective, focusing on lighting and focusing on being able to control your lighting and control exposure, because that alone can make a bad camera look good. I wasn't able to learn that until I went to AFI, where we use like these old Sony F5 cameras. They're like 5 stops of dynamic range. So this is a more technical thing to people out there. But yeah, literally 2 stops over your highlights are blown, 3 stops under your shadows are gone. So you have to be so precise in controlling the precision of your lighting in like a tiny little dynamic range like that. But I look back on it and I was like, yeah, I was very happy with some of the shots, and some of them stayed in my reel for years and no one could tell it was shot on like a terrible little camera.
It's not about the instrument. It's about knowing how to use it.
Yeah, wait, what do they say in Top Gun? It's not the plane, it's the pilot.
Yes. So, you know, earlier when you were talking about how you stay to look at the credits, I do the same because as an Asian American artist in this industry, I get so excited when I see like an Asian name. I mean, not to discredit other people, but it's just like, I remember thinking like going crazy when I saw just one name before years ago. Then now we're starting to see more and more Asian last name or first name too in the credits. Yeah. So as an Asian American filmmaker yourself, what does it mean to be an Asian American pursuing film in this industry? Can you share us about your experience and your journey?
I think being an Asian American in film, it means going against the grain. Mainly because we're expected to be doctors, lawyers, engineers, et cetera, and it takes a conscious effort to be able to break out from that, and it takes a conscious effort to go against that societal expectation and, again, go against that grain. So I'm personally, I'm kind of proud of it, being able to just control what I want to do and pursue what I want to do in my passion. And in terms of just the world in media and the industry, it means a lot now because we have so many films coming out that are supporting these stories, and it gives me more opportunities because there are more stories that I identify with, so I'm more inclined to take on those projects.
What are some of your professional goals this year?
Professionally, I hope to shoot another feature at least.
Is there any project that you're excited about that you have recently just finished?
Yeah, there are two projects, I guess, both of them in different phases. One is the latest feature film I shot called The Harvest. It stars Duomu and Perry Young, and it's actually about a Hmong American family. So that's in the festival circuit right now. We premiered at Santa Barbara International Film Festival. And then the other is a feature doc that I've been shooting for the past couple of years on Paris by Night. So it will, I guess, be the official Paris by Night feature documentary. And we've traveled to Vietnam, Singapore, Thailand over the years, and still currently shooting. But we're slowly coming to a close to the story that we want to tell with it.
Well, good luck with that. I'm
Thank you.
excited to see that documentary one day when it's done.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's kind of like the only projects that my parents can really identify with. It's like, oh, look, I'm shooting about Paris by Night, and I grew up watching it. I would go to the Viet store every weekend with my mom. She would buy tapes there, so it's very a part
tapes,
of
VHS
stacks of VHSs,
and
right?
Rewind it.
Yeah. So it's very much a part of my upbringing that I'm actually pretty proud of being a part of.
I'm excited to see it.
Yeah. Mainly proud because then my parents can understand what I actually do, finally.
Well, thank you, Brian, so much for being here today and share so many wonderful insights.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And thank you for tuning into Off Talkies. And until next time.